Drone footage of crude oil polluted creeks in Niger Delta, children paddling canoe in darkened water, close shots of crude oil degraded mangrove, and transition of this footage to laboratory photo of petri dish and microorganism growing in harmony in addressing this challenge. My name is Eruchalu Izuchukwu Augustine, a microbiology student at the University of Port Harcourt, interested in environmental microbiology / petroleum microbiology. My academic journey, I have always been fascinated by microbes, and not just the identification of microbes, but the relationship it has with addressing oil degraded soil in Niger Delta, to be specific, especially with the use of indigenous microbes. One of the organisms I worked with, which is my foremost publication, is the identification of Proteus vulgaris, which is a type of microorganism or bacterium that has high motility and is found or can be found in soil, sewage, and of course your intestinal tract. They are opportunistic microorganisms and they are pathogens, of course, which means that they are disease-causing organisms. I was able to identify it as the causative agent of UTI in Niger Delta especially, and this is with the contribution of sewage to the river and water bodies. As a student, publishing this article far back 2023 has earned me 5 citations. Most importantly, I've also been able to work with Corynebacterium diphtheria, which is a fatal disease because it affects the respiratory tract, and in affecting the respiratory tract, it can damage the heart and the respiratory system itself. And I've been able to discover that rapid identification is the key access in addressing this crucial public health issue. During my industrial training at the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, which is an organization that really does a fantastic work, I was able to see the gross magnitude of impact of this hydrocarbon to the people, and not just to the people but to the environment itself. And I began to wonder what can be going on in the systems of these people living close by. And I discovered that most of them fell ill due to contaminated water, contaminated soil, and most importantly, contaminated food. This work in this great organization opened my eyes to be able to see how microorganisms and microbiologists can play a pivotal role in using bioremediation technique to be able to restore this degraded soil back to its original habitat. It is not something of 1 year, not 2 years, but we are in to understand how we can be able to address or attain sustainability, not just for now, but for the future generation. And this work has led me to meet a lot of impactful and notable people in this field. A remarkable scientist I was able to meet was my mentor, of course, Professor Niger Delta, who is also a mental biochemist and toxicologist. She's vast in this field and she is able to understand how to bridge this environmental biochemistry and toxicology with field impact and governance policy. Working with her has really inspired me a lot. Another scientist I met also was Professor CJ Ogugbe, who is currently the dean of my faculty and also my final year project supervisor. Currently, he is supervising me in my research project in trying to understand how we can be able to restore, not just because when we look at restoration and remediation, we look into how we can be able to attain TPH reduction. But now we are looking at how to restore ecosystem services. And ecosystem services are not just about TPH amount or concentration in the soil or in the water. We are talking about how microbial activity can return back, how biodiversity can return back. And this is an interesting work I'm currently working on alongside my project supervisor. He's a fantastic guy. And lastly, Professor Chioma Blaise Chikere, I was able to look at her and her ability to be able to comprehend global impacts technique that she brings in to our local community to be able to solve these challenges. We Africans or Niger Deltans, we need to understand that we have to innovate to get a novel strategy using our own indigenous techniques to be able to address these challenges. And this is a crucial aspect which narrowed me down to where I talk about nanotechnology in microbiology, especially looking for how to use this particular nanomaterials such as nanoparticles to look into how we can now remediate this soil due to their surface activity, whereby remediation can now be easily accessible by this microorganism. It is a fantastic aspect which I'm currently working on. Advocacy is important, but advocacy is not the end of this pursuit for sustainability. We must actively look into how to now address this challenge, because this problem has been done. So we must look at how to be able to get this soil back to its normal state. And this is a gap. Looking into advocacy, yes, telling the government we need to do this, we need to do that, but personally or individually, we need to look and key into how we can collectively look at how to now address this challenge, and not just advocacy. When looking at Niger Delta, out of my experience, it is a very disheartening experience, especially in Ogoniland, where I see a lot of pollution, whereby even plants can no longer germinate. A lot of biodiversities are being lost. And as a microbiology, we look at this from another perception, because for it to be visible through the plant or through the environment, now think of the unseen workforce of nature, which is the microorganism, which means that there has been a thorough damage of microbial activity in this particular ecosystem, and restoration starts where microbial activity becomes active. We must talk about the environment first. And talking about the environment first is to make sure that the environment is safe for you and I to be able to live in. And when it's safe for you and I, disease has no place in our ecosystem, because the ecosystem is safe. Conclusively, I think it is a time for youth, students, to make a shift and a change in Niger Delta. And this has led me in initiating a webinar which will be running from the next 2 to 4 months in addressing students to know that we do have a problem, and this problem cannot truly be solved by advocacy, by active research and action. And if you're an organization or a professional who has 1 or 2 things to tell these students across universities in Niger Delta, please reach out to me.